Hey everybody, it's Pete. Welcome and good morning to a new episode of Stocks for Breakfast. So excited to bring this episode to you today because today we're going to talk about one of the reasons that I believe, and this is based on years of experience, including my own trading, why traders struggle and what areas of trading is it that they lose their confidence or start to feel like they can't trade successfully. And it usually comes down to stock selection. It usually comes down to trading, and it is sounds like such a cliche. It's going to sound like they're trading the wrong stocks at the wrong time. Maybe you've gone through this phase where you're like, oh, everything's great, and you're putting on trades and trade after trade after trade, week after week, you're making money, and trading feels like it's easy. And then you reach a point where you're like, I don't understand. I'm doing exactly what I did a month ago, but it seems like nothing I'm doing is working, and your confidence just absolutely gets shattered. By the way, if you find these videos helpful, definitely click down and subscribe. That would mean the world to me. So what we're going to talk about is, I call them stocks in play, but it's really more specifically, it is about finding stocks that have institutional or smart money interest right now. And the simplest way to do that is to understand the difference between when a stock is well bid or well offered, which I'll explain what that means in a second, and avoiding stocks that are not well bid and well offered. And we're going to go through different time frames. We're going to do daily, weekly, and monthly so that by the time we're done with this short video, it should be blaringly obvious to you exactly which stocks should have your attention right now because they have the smart money attention. That's the big thing. We're not creating the movement in the stocks. We're looking for where smart money is saying, we like this stock, we are going to keep buying this stock or selling it, but let's talk about buying. And until you see that story change, and which it could change from 1 week to the next, 1 day to the next, 1 month to the next, it's the consistency over time that really makes those stocks easier to trade because what's happening is obvious. And if you want to learn how to do this in real time with me, definitely click down and learn about the boot camp. I'd love to see you on the other side. So we're going to start out with the market. We're going to take a look at the SPY ETF from 1 day to the next, 1 week to the next, and 1 month to the next, and get a feel for when the stock is in play. So we're going to take a look at the charts now. All right, so we're actually going to start out on the daily charts here. We're going to make this as simple as possible. So what we're looking for when we discuss well bid versus well offered. So this is well bid, and well bid is defined as higher highs, higher lows, and I guess if you would say well bid in the sense that there's well bid plus and there's just well bid. So well bid is when there's higher highs and higher lows. Well bid plus is when the second candle, so if we're looking at these two candlesticks, when the close is above the previous close and the close is above the previous high. So all systems are go there, right? So again, this next candlestick, well bid as well, but the story has changed a little bit there. That made it a little bit tougher week because there wasn't a big distance between the open and the close. And then this candle is where everything changes because from 1 day to the next, the candle was definitely well bid, but it traded below the open the entire day. So you can start to see when you have parameters that there's different scenarios where it's just better versus it's the same situation, but it's not as good trading. So you can see here, despite the fact that we had higher highs and higher lows, during that day, selling was actually predominant. So that was not perfect scenario. So we're going to actually walk our way over from the daily charts to the weekly charts to the monthly charts. So you can start to eyeball on a bigger picture where the obvious trades are. And you can see here in the market, in the SPY, that pretty much the last 3 weeks, just about, have been all buying except for a couple of days. And even when we did have selling at the end of the day, which caused this red candle, the very next day, you can see from here to here, it opened higher immediately and became a well-bid candle again. So if you know, and if you've been a regular subscriber to the channel, or if you've been in the boot camp, we have two different kind of candles, really. There's an energy candlestick with a large body, and then there's an indecision candlestick. And you can see there's 4 days of indecision here that just made it really tough to trade. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go very quickly to the higher time frames and looking at different stocks so you can get a feel for whether or not from day to day, week to week, month to month, you're in the right stocks or not. And I got some pretty stark examples. So I'm going to start out here with the SPY so you can see where we are over the last week or so, 2 weeks on the daily chart. Then you zoom out to the weekly chart and you can see that the picture is still pretty clear. All systems are go, and especially if you've been trading the E-minis, it's been really nothing but get long, look for a spot to buy, and mostly the pullbacks have been good. So now we're going to actually zoom out and we're going to take a look at a different stock. We're going to take a look at Boeing, where you can see Boeing is on the daily chart. There's a couple of days of buying, followed by a couple of days of selling, followed by a couple of days of buying, followed by a week of selling. It just hasn't been consistent. And if you go to the weekly chart, you'll see the same thing where there's no consistency from 1 week to the next, where there's buying, then there's selling, then there's indecision, then there's selling, then there's indecision, indecision, indecision. And then out to the monthly chart, you can see this picture in an even bigger way, where other than this, the pandemic, there has not been consistency from one day, 1 week, 1 month to the next. So we're actually going to jump out to Goldman Sachs to get the same type of picture. So you can clearly see, hopefully now right away, you can look at it and say, my gosh, if I'm trading this stock, where is the smart money? Where is the smart money from one day to the next, pushing it in one direction where I could definitely say I want to be a buyer? It's actually vacillating not only from one day to the next, but from 1 week to the next, where you can see there's buying, massive indecision, selling, indecision, buying, indecision, selling. And that's the stocks that kind of drive you crazy, where you know what you're doing, you know what you're looking at, but you're in the wrong stocks and it's just harder to trade. And what's kind of ironic about that is that all you need to do is pay attention to the right ideas before you go into the day, before you go into the week. And that's where trading actually becomes easier. And I say this all the time because you did the hard work before the market even opened, before the week even started. So if you're swing trading or holding stocks a little bit longer, whether it's the beginning of the month for the month, whether it's the beginning of the week for the coming week, it starts with this. It starts with really the most basic analysis of saying, can I look at this chart and say, are buyers or sellers definitely in charge? And let's just use buyers as an example. And then we'll use a different example that's pretty obvious right now, which is Apple. So it's very easy to say from one day to the next that Apple, for the most part, has had nothing but buying. And those are the easier stocks to make money in. So you can see here from one day to the next that buying has been the predominant force. Now, if we go out to the weekly chart, it becomes even more stark. It becomes even more dramatic, where you can look at this and say it's very obvious to tell what it looks like when there's easier or better buying opportunities. And then if we even jump out to the monthly chart, you can see here there's 5 months of buying, 2 months of selling, 5 months of buying. So it's very easy to look at charts when you have the right perspective. We're going to actually take a look at another chart that over the last year has been very easy to identify as a buying opportunity. But what I want to point out is what it's looked like during August and how reading the tape has helped the stock change dramatically and made it a more difficult stock to trade. So you can see here on the larger time frame that for months there was nothing but buying. Okay, even during the pandemic, we pushed down and caught a bid again very quickly, right? You go out to the weekly charts and you can see the weekly charts pretty much had higher highs and higher lows. So it was well bid for the most part since the bottom in March. For this entire period, there wasn't any lower lows and lower highs. So again, pretty dramatic. Maybe this one candle here, right? But look what's going on now for the last couple of months, where it's just not as clean. It's not as clear. You can see that we're rotating. We went from well bid to well offered to indecision candlestick to buying to well bid, but not perfectly well bid to well offered to well bid again. When you start to notice these things, you'll notice that if you're not paying attention, the stock becomes dramatically more difficult to trade than when it was obvious here and then when it was obvious here. So the goal, and I think that the problem sometimes is we get stuck in these shorter time frame charts, but these shorter time frame charts become easier to trade, and that's whether it's a swing trade or a day trade, quite honestly. It's easier to determine if you want to be involved in a stock because the smart money is involved in the stock when you kind of zoom out a little bit. And the reason for that is because the smart money is not allocating money, or they're not day trading. They're not in the market from one day to the next. They're looking to build positions or unload positions over time. So if that's what they're looking to do, and they're working on a little bit more of a bigger picture, that's what we need to start doing, is paying attention to the bigger picture. Say, is there consistency from one day to the next? Is there consistency from 1 week to the next, 1 month to the next? You'll start to see that as it's kind of like, and I don't play music at all, so I want to be clear. It's kind of like you start to learn how to read the music. Yeah, it's more than just singing the song. Now you're like, okay, I'm paying attention to everything right now, because yes, the stock went up yesterday, which Boeing is a really good example of this, where it might go up one day and then the next 3 days it's choppy. And you kind of look to the left and you're like, there's no consistency of buying from one day to the next, from 1 week to the next, 1 month to the next. When you start to put these pieces together, you start to say to yourself, now I understand why trading sometimes can feel like it's awesome and I know exactly what I'm doing. And then there's other times I'm in the same stock and it's like I feel like I'm looking at the charts upside down, and you start to tell other people, buy when I sell because it's on the I'm doing everything wrong. It's not that you've lost your skill. It's that you need to take it another level and just pay attention to which stocks you're in at that moment, for that week, for that month, for that day, for that hour, because a stock you might have loved last week, the circumstances might have changed. So we just need to pay attention, and that's where trading becomes a heck of a lot easier. So if you find these videos helpful, definitely let me know, and I hope to see you in the boot camp. Have a great day, everybody.